Hi, I'm Amy Riordan from walkinginfreedom.net. This is part 2 of the series I started on struggling with same-sex attractions. If you missed the first video, I recommend that you go back and watch that because all of these videos will be tying in together. Tonight, I wanted to share with you the actual struggle that I had. And that struggle started when I was 18 years old. Before I was 18, had always liked boys. I had always had boyfriends, not always the best ones, but I had always had boyfriends, and it wasn't until I was 18 years old that I had a very good female friend that I started getting very, very close with. We became emotionally dependent on each other, and eventually I started having dreams about her, sexual dreams, and when this started happening, it terrified me at first. I had never had any thoughts or feelings like that before, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't think I was going to tell her because I didn't think her reaction would be very good if I did. So I determined not to tell her. But after a few months, I decided I was going to tell her. My feelings really started changing for her as I dwelled on the dreams that I had, and I wanted to tell her. So I did. It was at that point that I found out she was feeling the same way about me. Neither of us knew back then that God created us for a specific purpose, that He created us any certain way at all. We just thought if this is how we feel, then it must be who we are, so we went with it. Our relationship after that lasted another 2 years that we were involved together. And she eventually moved, which was good because it wasn't heading in a very good direction for either one of us. But I felt devastated when our relationship broke up because I thought I finally found someone that I really loved, someone I really cared for, someone who loved me, cared about me, really understood me, and we had an emotional and physical connection that I had never experienced before in my life up until that point. So I was just absolutely devastated when we separated ways. I didn't really know what to do with that experience, so I just decided I would move on and just start dating a boy when I found one, and I did. He and I started watching porn. I had never done that before, but I quickly discovered that we could watch movies with 2 women in them. So I thought, okay, I can do that. That sounded fun to me and like a really good idea. And it was not a good idea, but I thought I can do this. I didn't realize I was cementing those thoughts and those attractions into my head and my heart even more than they already were. Years down the line, I gave my life to Christ. I had started going back to church. I was raised going to church, but I didn't have a relationship with God growing up. I just thought He was someone way up in the sky that was watching every move I made, but wasn't really personable at all. But in my mid-20s, I started going back to church, and I gave my life to Christ. It was the first time I realized there was so much more for me, and Jesus became very appealing to me in the sense that He was so personable and that I could have a connection with Him that I didn't ever think I could have with God. And I wanted that so badly, so I gave my life to Him. My life really started to change. I eventually met my husband, Kevin, And I just thought all of those feelings, all of those attractions that I had would go away. I, at that point, was used to fantasizing about women in my mind, so much so I didn't even really think about it. I just did it. It was just part of what I did. And it wasn't until 2 years after we got married that really kind of exploded in my life. I started looking at pornography online, and I was looking and reading erotica, lesbian erotica, and looking at and watching lesbian porn. And the curiosity I had, the feelings I had, the attractions I had just exploded. Like I said, it just buried me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't think I could tell anybody. I felt such shame. I felt such guilt, of course, for what I was doing. And this time I had a relationship with God, and I didn't know how to get out of that mess. By that time, I was questioning if I made a mistake even getting married, because I had let everything escalate after watching pornography like that for so long. It was like, it was part of me. Those attractions, that was part of me. It felt like that's who I was at that point. I finally did tell my husband, and that started the process of healing my heart and healing our marriage. I still struggled after that. I had stopped looking at the pornography, but the fantasies in my mind did not stop. I didn't know how to make them stop. I was having dreams about that really were very similar to the pornography I used to look at. My dreams are very real. So I would wake up feeling like I did all of these things that I didn't do, and it was horrific. My husband and I finally went to see my pastors, and they prayed for me one night, and I was delivered from those dreams. So that was amazing, because I'd been having them for years, and they just started escalating in the amount I was having and how graphic they were, and they were gone. And I knew God did that, and I was so thankful, but I was still struggling. It wasn't as severe of a struggle because I wasn't daily thinking about the dream that I just had, but the struggle was still there. I started reading everything I could about same-sex attractions. I started praying about it, pleading with God to please take them away, because I didn't want them anymore. It was such a strain on my marriage, as you can imagine. And I felt such guilt and such shame, and the harder I prayed, the more I tried to make them go away, the worse I felt. I felt such despair, depression, really, because I could not make them go away. What I didn't realize was I was putting all of my focus on making them go away, and I blew everything up in proportion, because that's where all my focus and all my prayer life was going into, pleading with God to make it go away. This affected my friendships. I really didn't have any close friends at all. I was afraid to feel something that I didn't want to feel, so I stayed far away from anybody, really. It affected so many things. Even after I had both of my kids, a few years after I had them, we started swimming lessons, and even just going into a locker room caused me to panic. I kept thinking, okay, I'm not allowed to look at lesbian pornography, and I'm not allowed to read erotica about women in locker rooms together and all of these things, but I'm allowed to actually go into a locker room. And it caused me to panic, and I never, ever found myself wanting to look at anybody in there, but the fear of wanting to, or the fear of feeling something that I didn't want to feel, was so intense, and it caused me to avoid locker rooms. It just caused so much strain in my life, so much stress, and I didn't know what to do with it all. Finally, I came to a point where I sat down one day and I asked God, am I a lesbian? I knew He didn't create me that way because I didn't used to be that way, but I knew that with every fiber of my being, that is how I felt. That's who I felt like I had become. And I didn't know if it was too late. God wasn't helping me. I had prayed for years, and I would wake up the next day and still feel the same way. I didn't know if it was just my consequence, it was just my lot in life. I just didn't know. And God very, very clearly spoke to my heart that day, a very loud no. When I said, am I a lesbian? He said no, and it could have shut the whole room for how loud it sounded inside of me. And I knew God spoke to me. Because when God speaks to you, even if it's just one word, you know it's Him, and it changes your heart, it affects your heart. And I was determined not to let go of what He said. He didn't say, well, I didn't make you a lesbian, Amy, but you turned yourself into one, or you didn't resist any of those thoughts, so this is your own fault. He didn't say that to me at all. He said, no, that's not who I am. And this was one of the beginning points for me in realizing maybe God could heal me. Maybe God could do something. Maybe this sin isn't worse than every other sin on the face of this earth. I think when we focus on same-sex attractions as really the worst sin out there, it can be very damaging in so many ways. And one of those ways can be for those of us who want to be set free. It seems impossible. Like, that's the one sin that God can't touch. But that's a lie. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this next video. So please stay tuned. I have so much more to tell you. There are so many different times along the way that God healed part of my heart. There are so many instances where He spoke very clearly to my heart, like I just mentioned to you. And I just want to encourage you to know that Jesus can do the same thing for you. So come back. If you want to contact me, my website is walkinginfreedom.net. I also have a Facebook page, Walking in Freedom. And I'm hopefully going to be doing the next video next week, and it will be covering everything God did in my heart, which is a lot. And I'm very excited to share that because my life really started to change after He started healing my heart. And it's not at all like I thought it would look like or how it would come at all. It's not at all what I had tried to do in gathering as much information as I could, finding out the root. None of that. It's just really amazing what God can do. So please have hope. Please know that there is so much hope for you. It doesn't matter what you've done. God can redeem it if you give it to Him. Give it to Him and watch and see what He does. So stay tuned for the third video, hopefully next week. Thank you.